I mean,
Okay, so we're gonna start the meeting if that's okay with everybody. So
introduction.
here,
It means I have to
so why
take
don't
notes.
we just start by going around the room and everybody introduce yourself? I don't know, say your name, whatever you feel needs to be said.
Hi, I'm Maricela Constantino. I live in Ward 7. I've been in Vermont. It'll be 10 years this summer. So this is all very new to me, but I've appreciated having access to the NPA meetings to kind of learn about what's going on in the community. And looking forward to engaging with you guys.
Where did you live before?
Well, many places, but I grew up in Texas. So
Texas?
we don't do this in Texas.
Sorry, just too much like democracy.
It's in Texas. Oh,
This is
okay.
too
Everything can
close
be
to
settled with
democracy.
guns. Jeez. Okay, great. So I'm Carmen George. I live in Ward 7. I'm excited about the new steering committee and the new feelings and vibes and things going into this NPA. So really excited.
Okay. I'm Hank Prensky from Ward 4 and new to the everybody's new to the NPA here. And but I don't have any experience with other NPAs. And anxious to be involved. Or glad to be involved.
My turn. I'm Deb Boughton, lived here since 1985, moved here from DC. Was involved in a neighborhood group in DC, right in DC.
ANCs,
Pardon?
the ANC. Advisory Neighborhood Councils.
You know, to be honest, I don't remember what it was called. But yeah, and then, and I used to attend these a lot, but then I had a period where I was gone from Burlington, lived in Jeffersonville for like 7, 8 years. And then I've come back. I mean, I had foot in both communities, but now I've been back for 8 years here, and I've been gradually putting my feet back in things here. So here I am. Oh, and my background is I'm a writer and an editor, and used to be a journalist. I'm retired now.
Awesome.
I used to be an ace at grammar and all of that stuff, and more I start going, oh, is that right? So, you know, but yeah, I really, yeah, so that's my strength in this group anyway. So I think that's what I bring to it.
You're a strength.
Yeah, that's my strength.
No, you are a strength.
Oh, I am, we're all strengths. We all have strengths.
I'm Vicky Garrison, Ward 7. What ward do you live in?
Oh, I'm sorry, 7. Yep.
That's all I want to share.
Okay. Okay,
That's all I
so
have to say.
yeah, so
I talk too much.
so here is where I'm gonna talk about our starting point, okay? So we have an original document, which is the bylaws from 2008. And that's our starting point. And one of the catalysts for change was a person who is transgender being treated poorly and having the courage to speak up and go to the city council and say, hey, this is not right. And the city council responded unanimously saying, hey, this needs to be cleared up, and NPAs need a clear non-discrimination policy. So I would say that is our top priority in this meeting, okay? And Vicky has taken the time to put together some great recommendations. And the challenge here is that they're on the CEDO version, which is a little bit different from the 2008 version. So
A lot
I'd
different.
like to figure out how do we get it? My question to all of you is, do we make this leap to the CETO version? And just tell, when we bring to the full community, do we say, hey, we feel that the CETO version has a lot to offer, or what do we say? Why, if someone asks us, why did you go from the 2008 to the CETO version?
I don't think we're there yet, because I think that we have to determine, you know, what format, we have so much work to do, like
Mhm.
determining what parts of the original, I think a lot of the original is in the CETO.
It is.
It's just
Yeah.
different. And the
Yes.
format's different. And I think that, so that's why I'm just saying, I don't think we're there. And I kind of looked at the CETO version because I felt like at the last meeting that the intention was to push the CETO version. And so that's where I spent my time. And there are
Okay.
lots of, I did look at all of the, the bylaws from the various wards, and I
Okay.
could see where CETO extracted ideas from them.
Yeah,
And
and they did a
so
great job. Yeah, I agree.
I think it needs work. I don't think it's a final draft. And I think it's important that we all feel comfortable with all the parts that are in there. And then we'll know what to bring to the people.
Yeah, okay.
Not to bring up Robert's rules or anything, but I think
Oh, gosh. Please don't.
if we're moving to a different version, I think we probably have to delete the current bylaws from in our meeting if we're taking on the CETO version, because that's the only thing that the city has. And if we're abandoning that, I'm
Well,
with
down the
Vicky,
road, we
there's
would have
too
to
many,
do that for sure.
right?
I don't know that we would have to
You need
do that
help?
because we're revising. I don't know that we would have to do anything other, because it's a revision. So
Yeah, yeah.
when you revise something, you can change the whole thing. It doesn't say to what extent it's
Right,
being
but
revised.
if we're starting with the CETO version, it's
Oh, I'm sorry.
very different than
I will
this.
break this up.
Right now,
I'm so sorry.
we're just, until we get to the point, we don't even need to think about that. I feel,
I agree.
you know, I mean,
It's okay. We don't need to
Yeah.
power brought the wrong cable.
I would start. with-
Are we able
If you
to
wanna sit,
decide
sit.
to start with one as the skeleton of our new bylaws and then go back and look at the other and take changes from it if we want?
So here, I am totally open to whatever, like, I just want to preface what I'm gonna say. But I had a conversation with, and I don't want to speak for Lee Terhune, but she expressed to me that she felt she has strong feelings about the original. So those are not my feelings, but I just want to share that somebody said that to me. So not that that's,
I'll try.
you know,
Nice.
it's just that there may be people who have feelings about moving to the CETO version. I like the CETO version. So what do you guys feel like? You feel like
think
the
we can-
CETO is where we should just move to? Okay,
I haven't, I wasn't part of, like, where we sort of got us to needing to revisit these,
yeah,
but, just like a personal opinion, like, we're. Seems like a nice opportunity for a fresh start,
yeah,
and so keeping the old format sort of doesn't really look like a fresh start.
yeah, Yeah.
And I also think, like, just. I know that this is like a one pager, and I know people sometimes like that.
yeah.
But it doesn't have a lot of like, it doesn't come off as a community document or like like the version that I read from Vicky just feels like more welcoming.
Yeah,
And
I
in
felt
plain
that way
language
too.
and like, I
Yeah.
know, what you're-
I know it's longer, but I think like, I had a preference. I preferred that one. It just seemed more meaningful than like, this just seemed really like rigid. to
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
I also think what's important is we're revising them for a reason.
Yeah.
There have been problems in this ward for a reason. There's been a history in this ward that needs to change.
Yeah,
And I think that starts, and that's why I'm participating in these meetings. Because if we want to encourage an environment that is inclusive, that values diversity, is inclusive, and people have a sense of belonging, it's critical that we reflect that in this document. Otherwise, we won't nurture that to come to fruition.
so Deb, this is when I was telling you about the note taking, if you could summarize this conversation.
Yeah.
So we can have minutes,
Yeah,
so that when we go to the full community, we can have we can preface and say, hey, this is the thought behind this change. And so like what both people have said, like if you could summarize that.
Yeah, yeah.
And then can you share it with, before we put the minutes on the website? We'll send it out to this group and everyone can give you feedback on it.
Sure.
Make sure that those
Sure.
sentiments and feelings are
You're
clear.
not gonna put the rest. You don't need to. Yeah, sure.
So the feeling that I get, Hank, are you on board with moving to the CEDO version?
Sure.
Okay. And I feel like everybody's read Vicky's edits, right?
I skimmed through them, I have to admit.
Do you guys
I
want to take a
didn't-
moment to read it, or Vicky,
I'm
or
happy to
somebody,
talk about it.
what?
I'm happy to talk about it.
Please,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
Let me
Yeah,
throw out one thing.
Yeah.
I agree with what you're saying. Because the bylaws, well, I agree with both of what you're saying. Because the bylaws generally have more meat in them than a one-page little, front
Yeah.
back, Not to say that we need to be wordy, but they generally have more to them. And yet with the CEDO version, I feel like they're a little bit too wordy. So that's where I kind of come down a little bit, I feel like they could be tightened up a bit. That's one thing. So I have no problem starting with CEDO and then I would edit those.
okay.
I like what you've added, but then I would tighten them up
Right.
too. So,
So,
Hold on, I'm sorry. Were you raising your hand? What was that?
Oh, I was just gonna say, if it's helpful for you all, I can put any comments or.
That would
go
be
into
great.
Suggestion mode, and so you can see the changes live.
That
But,
sounds
like,
great.
It'll just be suggestions, so you'll still see the original, if you guys are fine with me doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds great.
So just let me know if you're going through any parts of it, like where you.
so one of the things I was thinking about in my mind is that where there have been issues in the community have been around matters of diversity and equity. And we want to promote an environment that is inclusive and where people feel like they're a part of it. I assume we're on
Yes.
that page.
100%.
Therefore, at the beginning, I thought it was important to add those language, even though this is city language from the city webpage, but that we include it there. Because what we do later, simply adding a non-discrimination clause does not do justice, and at the bottom, mind you,
Mhm.
does not do justice to this part of the mission. Because it tells people what not to do, and it's kind of negative connotations with what DEIB is about. I think it's
Yeah.
important to frame it in a way that promotes an atmosphere that shows people what we are and what we're going to continue to move towards.
Yeah.
So that was one thought. And also just changing that we're established. Okay, they're established now, more active, right? They're established and they're up and running. So that was my thought there. I changed the order. I understand the first one was to operate through democratic principles and procedures. But I think before we even get there, there's work that we individually have to do, and by changing the changing the order really holds people subconsciously, maybe consciously, individually accountable for their part too. So recognize diversity as both a strength and an opportunity. Cultivate involvement of, these are the same, right?
Mhm.
Or did I change them from
Mm.
pseudo? So I just changed the order. And some of the language. So the one, acknowledge the barriers to accessing decision-making. I put that there because I think there has to be something in here honoring, and we can change the language. It was a placeholder. Where there is voting, it's often not an equitable experience for people of marginalized needs and identities. And I think it's important that we become increasingly aware of that in this space. And obviously, this is a new discussion, maybe for some of us here, but others of us know it very well.
I agree with that. I just think that maybe there could be a little bit more explaining what that means for people who don't understand that
Well,
so
it
much.
could be acknowledge or be mindful of I was being really covert here, but acknowledge and or be mindful of the dynamics of privilege and power in a space.
Okay. Well, here's what I was thinking, for example, acknowledge barriers to accessing decision-making, such as people who generally don't have haven't had the privilege to participate, or, something that people can hear easy. Does that make sense, or is that
I
not?
think that acknowledge the
smooth?
dynamics of privilege and power in a space.
Okay, and how would we address that though? As an organization, as this NPA, we can acknowledge them. What do we do about them? That's what that's what I'm thinking.
Well,
What do
for
we do?
example, it's hegemony, right? So white male privilege is real. And if they're dominating a space or taking over a space, to ensure that space is made for other voices. Just an
Okay,
example.
okay, well, that's what I mean then. Acknowledge the barriers and take steps to include. That's what I mean. That's what I'm saying, to say, what will we do to address it?
Right.
Because otherwise we can all say, yeah, we acknowledge that.
Well-
And carry on, you know what I mean?
Sure.
That's what I mean. I don't mean to be, I hope I'm not being a pain in the.
No, I appreciate that. Anyway, I
Yeah.
just thought it was important for us to put
Yep,
something
yep.
there in that space. That was just
Mhm.
and also in the next one, I understand that people may say, is it okay that I move on to the next one?
Yeah, of course.
Be a fun, creative, and vital organization that provides value and benefit through the multitude of perspectives shared.
Mhm,
And again, I added diverse there
mhm.
because
Yeah,
people might say
good.
multitude of perspectives, well, that's diversity. But it could be a multitude of perspectives from one lens of experience.
Mhm,
So I thought it was important to add that.
mhm.
Then further down, again, the language participation by non-members was just messy.
You're bringing joy to Deb's heart.
And what?
You're bringing joy to Deb's heart.
It was just messy. I was an English teacher,
Oh,
so
Good,
I was
good.
very, I was generous in not marking this up more.
yeah, well, maybe you should mark it up more.
Yeah, feel free.
So I also thought using more active verbs
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree,
was
totally.
a better approach.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why that language changed. It was very wordy.
I like number 2.
Where
Like,
we at? With this list?
conducting meetings, and for those online who don't know about this, like, we had Joanne from our steering committee questioned, do we have to use Robert Rules of Order? And I thought, wow, that would really free us up to really have some change and have conversation. So that connects into these comments that you have here, I
Yeah.
think.
And I think that using Robert's Rules of Order perpetuates division because there hasn't been exposure and experience with that manner.
Mhm.
And there's already
Yep.
a gap in the way in which people communicate based upon many demographics.
Yeah.
And so I think that further divides people. And it's
Absolutely.
critical that we don't use it. That's my recommendation, and that maybe should be an agenda item at our next meeting.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I saw at well, I'm gonna call it our first NPA because it's
It's
a
our
real,
first.
real change,
Sure.
is when I was sitting there listening to people struggling with Robert's Rules of Order. I'm like, how can I stop this so that people can communicate? And so
Right.
when
right,
somebody said,
right.
hey, we can actually get rid of this, I was like, yeah, that sounds great. So we can actually, people talk without having a manual, so it's
That's
great.
true. I know. I mean, I guess at times when there's some really contentious, but how would you define that? Discussion, maybe it needs to come into play.
Well, you
I
know what?
don't know.
At the facilitators meeting, one of the things they talked about was,
I hate them myself.
well, they were talking, she said, oh, well, there was points where she was talking about conversation, and I was, if someone calls the question and somebody's standing there saying, I'm not okay with this, I'm not done with this, and the whole room votes that we're done, I asked the facilitator, like, what do you do? And she didn't really have an answer, and I was like, well, we're really about community building, so we gotta figure it out, but Robert's Rules of Order is just gonna bulldoze over people.
Mm,
And that doesn't, may move the meeting along, but it may not really resolve.
doesn't feel right.
And I think it inhibits, or it keeps people from speaking up
Yeah,
who don't know that, because, like, oh, I'm not.
Yeah, because they don't want to be in violation.
Way, I need something to
Yeah.
help me out, and like, forget it, like, I'll just let them talk, and,
Yeah.
so I think it discourages, other people who haven't been exposed to Robert's Rules from actually participating in the conversation.
yeah.
Additionally, what the origins of Robert Rules?
Yeah, I'm sure they came from England,
Right, the
Parliament,
origin is
yeah.
Which
problematic.
Robert was that?
Well, and the very fact that we're
King
following
Robert.
4 women in this room, Robert's Rules.
Yeah.
Good point.
And I'm all for having, like, some sense of order, so I think we would all, everybody wants.
I agree.
We don't wanna have one person speaking for hours because they're under Robert's Rules, but I think, like, we can agree on something that's less formal, and
Yeah,
just more respectful.
And there
Yeah.
may be parts of it that we want to keep.
Yeah.
okay, so we're here on the portion of conducting a meeting.
Interesting. This is an interesting topic.
Yeah,
And then some of the language in this one changed, and I'm not sure why, Carmen, you put full, our steering committee's full.
what did
I thought that I saw that on there were like 2 vacancies on Ward 4 on the page you created, your page.
I said full?
Or you put
I put vacancies.
vacancies, but there are more than that. We haven't
Yeah,
determined a number. And what's in that, in the former bylaws is a maximum of 9.
so I put on the website vacancies for Ward 4 because I really feel like we're really lacking in 4. There are vacancies in 7, but I wanted to emphasize. And so I can add vacancies in Ward 7.
our current laws say 9 persons per ward.
Nine
So that's
percent. Okay, so
18
I'll change.
Right.
Group,
Right,
including a youth from each ward.
right. I don't think there's a reason to change those.
Okay, so I'll change that on the website.
And it's a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 9. I don't
Well,
know,
it could get kind of unruly, I would imagine.
9?
18.
More, well, if they were 18, I would think.
Yeah, it starts feeling like maybe it's like having two separate meetings.
Too many cooks in the kitchen kind of thing.
Well, we
You know?
started with 7, we now have 9. And it's not balanced by ward yet, but I think we would be fine simply adding people as it made sense,
I agree.
with a limit of 18.
I don't think that we have enough knowledge to change that number at this point. So I
Yeah.
agree with you, Hank.
Yes, it doesn't seem like it's an issue.
Right.
I would love for us to have that issue.
Yeah,
like,
right. I
oh my
guess-
gosh, there's so many people who want to be on the steering
But they
committee.
used to have, I've not been attending the meetings, I admit, and so I don't know what all happened, that led to all this, but they were begging for people to be on the steering committee. They were
Sure.
trying to get me to be on it,
Oh, yeah.
and there were only 3 of them.
Yeah.
So,
Anyway, I don't know, if this is jumping into, I just looked up, there are alternatives to Robert's Rules of Order.
mhm,
And there's a list of them here, and there's something called Martha's Rules.
yeah,
You know this?
Yeah, I looked it up.
Okay, I didn't know. Okay, and it was invented, they were developed by a general in the army here. They didn't come from England. Anyway. So I'll send this to everybody if you want it later, but back to this.
so the terms, this was a part of CETO kind of extrapolating a little bit, and I'm not sure I agree with it, but steering committee members will serve 1-year terms commencing on September 1st and concluding on August 31st of the subsequent year. Positions filled at other times throughout the year will be subject to renewal during regular scheduled September NPA meetings. This part, after serving 4 consecutive 1-year terms, a steering committee member must step down from their position for a full year before becoming eligible to seek a reappointment, unless otherwise specified in Article 3 regarding the filling of vacancies. I think that might be problematic. And I'm not thinking of myself because we're here now. But I think about it for marginalized populations, like people are surviving in their own ways, living in a society that doesn't reflect them and that they often don't feel included in. And so for folks who may step forward, I think they're fewer and they can be fewer and far between in those populations. And for that reason, I think we might be limiting.
We can just get rid of it. Let's get
Include-
rid of term limits.
Are you okay with that? Is
Totally.
everybody okay with that?
I am. How about you, Marisol?
Obviously, because people can be removed at any time. If someone was problematic, they can be removed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you don't want to get into the thing where it's always the same people always making the decisions, right? And they just keep getting reelected. Well, it's the membership that
But
elects.
I think Vicky's point's really important.
Well, I agree with that.
Like the
point. I
popu-
do.
The percentage of people that are not white in the state,
Yeah.
like, it'd be like, oh, you're getting kicked off, you're the only person that.
Yeah, right.
And then if
Hopefully
somebody,
that we have more diversity and that's not an issue, but let's just like not get rid of people just because some random number.
Well, the
but
1 year
another
thing
thought is too, thinking about it in that term, as we are a changing body, hopefully. I've watched the demographic face of Burlington change my entire life, and I'm so grateful for the changes. Because when I was at Champlain Elementary School,
Oh my gosh.
Did you attend that as a kid?
Yes,
Okay.
my family were the only Black children in the school with the exception of 2 other children
Mm.
in the entire
That sounds
school.
hard.
And by the time I got there, I think one of my brothers was already out of there. Maybe 2 of them. So it was just 3 of us. And so I also think of it in terms of as we do change, you know, my hope is that there will be more people stepping up to be involved.
Mhm.
And I guess it can always be revisited at that time.
Yeah,
True.
let's get rid of it. You good with it, Deb? You good with it, Hank? Yeah. So I just want to point out, we're getting close to 6 o'clock.
Yes.
Is everybody open to going past 6 o'clock to try to further this conversation? Is anybody,
A little bit past, sure.
how about 6:15? Give
Sure.
ourselves.
I am.
We have another meeting tonight.
Yeah,
You do?
well, it's at 6:30.
Right.
So
Here?
are you okay with going to 6:15? Or do you want more of a gap between the two?
Very reasonable to have.
I mean,
I'm not gonna be here at 6:30.
Yeah, I need to leave about 10 after for a previous.
Yeah, I don't really want to,
So you want to end at 6?
I think we just talked about starting meetings on time and ending them on
Yeah.
time.
Okay, so you
we
want,
got a rough
but I-
start,
but-
so
but you
let's
can-
face it.
But
But
that's
you can
part of the
also-
process.
Yeah,
but you can also ask if people are okay with extending, and if you aren't okay with extending, that's okay. I'm just asking the question. So if you're not okay with extending, that's okay, no problem.
As long as we end at 6, I feel like I have a better sense of like what we're doing.
Okay,
I
okay.
mean, next meeting will surely be able to start on time.
Okay, I think like today we laid some foundation. Do we want to make a mark, like make a note of where we ended?
Well, that's all the changes I made. And again, if people are going to be looking at this, if we all focus on this one, compare it to the other one, and then come back,
Yeah,
Yeah,
then we'll have something concrete. And also I do want to keep all of the stuff Cito put at the bottom. I don't care about the conflict of interest because I don't know how you don't have conflict of interest when you live in a community, but as far as the miscellaneous stuff,
yeah.
I like it all.
So one
you
of the,
like it all you said, or
I
you don't?
like
You
it.
do. Oh, okay.
there's 2 things that I think we need to add to really address what the city council's directives related to specifically what happened in our ward, which is we need a sexual harassment policy in our bylaws, and we need a grievance process so
Whoa,
that people are not left.
So those are
Struggle.
not what City Hall said for us to do. We don't need a sexual harassment policy. I don't think that's what they,
City has one, I'm sure.
yeah, no, it's not that. I have it right here.
what do you mean?
I think for me, Vicky, what occurred around transgender extends into sexual harassment. And I think it is part of what happened. So we can talk about it more next time. And then the other thing is having a clear grievance process. So if you are experiencing something that you have somebody to turn to, that you can go to with confidence that they will support you in addressing it. So let's just
Okay.
table this conversation till next time. And we can take out from
Okay.
there. So
Okay.
do we want to choose a date?
Well, I just
Within-
want to follow up. So the 4 things the city said you have to have,
Okay,
it's non-discrimination,
yep,
right? Election and removal of officers,
okay,
that's both in here. Open meeting law, that's already in here.
yep,
And conflict of interest, that's already in here. Those are the 4 components they said have to be included
Okay,
in that.
okay.
So,
Do we want to go above?
I think,
Do we want to go above and beyond
Sure.
in a way that to
Why
protect
not?
people?
I mean, why wouldn't you want to go? It's not, I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't see any problem at all with adding that in. In fact, I think it would be wise to.
So let's table it because we agreed that we're gonna end on time, that we're not gonna extend. So that's okay. So let's table that. It's totally cool, and we'll just take it up at our next meeting. Is that good for everybody? Or do we want to extend for 5 more minutes, have a conversation? Vicky, any thoughts?
I'm happy to table it till next meeting.
I'm happy to do whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, good. You're good, Hank? You
I'm,
want me to ignore you?
I'm leaving.
He's like, I'm leaving.
No, yeah. I don't
Okay,
know.
so we'll just have a little more conversation about that, okay? And, yeah, and so can we're concluding today's meeting? Everybody good?
Aye,
You
aye,
good?
I'll vote in favor.
Right.
Okay,
Huh, okay.
Gender and sexuality are different, for the record.
Say that again, what'd you say?
I said gender and sexuality. It's different.
so that is the end of our meeting, and we will